Over the eons, chemical, visual, and vocal forms of communication have evolved over and over, helping animals to flourish in virtually every environment on the planet. How did this astonishing process of relaying information begin? A strange occurrence in the ocean may shed light on the very first communication. Not long ago, orbiting satellites picked up a strange glow in the sea off the Horn of Africa. Tens of thousands of square miles of ocean, an area the size of Connecticut, was lit up. It was a phenomenon known as Milky Seas. Similar occurrences had been witnessed for centuries, but with no explanation.
If you read 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea or other sort of seagoing novels, there'll be some very accurate descriptions of Milky Seas that the characters in the book have experienced.
The source of the Milky Sea was revealed to be bioluminescent bacteria, a species of tiny microbes found at sea. Why were trillions of marine bacteria lighting up all at once? Molecular biologists investigated the phenomenon and made an amazing discovery. Bacteria talk to each other.
Bacteria do communicate. They obviously don't have words like we do. What they use for their words are chemicals. So they exchange chemicals as their language, and it allows them to do different things.
Molecular biologist Bonnie Bassler studies how individual bacterium release chemical molecules to signal their presence to other bacteria.
As they're growing and dividing, they're making and releasing small molecules that you can just think of like hormones or pheromones. And when the molecules hit a particular amount, all the bacteria would recognize those molecules were there. It would tell them about how many neighbors they would have, and then they would all turn on light in synchrony.
Bioluminescent microbes are but one of millions of different bacterial strains that communicate this way. How do they do it? Bacteria often act like a legislative body.
Wilson of Ohio.
To achieve anything important, they need to work as a group. And to do this, they first need a quorum, the presence of a critical number of individuals that emit molecules to each other.
So we call this phenomenon quorum sensing. The bacteria vote with these little chemical votes. They count the vote, and then the entire group acts together.
But what would a single-cell bacterium, an organism that reproduces all by itself, need to communicate?
They need communication because they need to be able to carry out tasks that are too hard for the individual. They need it exactly the same way we often need to get groups together to accomplish things that we just couldn't do by ourselves because they're too hard.
Some bacteria communicate to find each other so they can hunt together. Others communicate to launch collective attacks on our bodies. And these bacteria, off the coast of Africa, turn bioluminescent in the ocean.
One bacteria makes a little bit of light that's not going to be perceived, but if they all glow together, you get perceivable light.
So what are bioluminescent bacteria trying to communicate? Incredibly, while many creatures use communication to avoid their predators, these bacteria are lighting up to attract fish to eat them.
In the case of bacteria, they actually live inside the guts of other animals. So for them to be eaten by a fish is actually a favorable thing. They want to be in that intestinal environment. When they get together in these colonies, they produce a glow, and some fish will be attracted to that light and come along and eat it.
The product of the Earth's most primitive organisms, Milky Seas are believed to be a remnant of the planet's very first communication. But for Bassler, talking bacteria are about far more than bioluminescence. The way they communicate reveals how cells, the building blocks of complex life, first came together.
Bacteria, because they have chemical communication, we think that they invented the way that groups of organisms or cells work together to do things cooperatively.
Such cooperation among cells is what creates and maintains the organs that run our complex bodies.
The mechanisms bacteria use to do this chemical communication are very analogous to the strategies used by the different cells in your body to make groups and to carry out particular tasks, like your kidney cells and your heart cells and your muscle cells.
In the billions of years since bacteria first relayed information, life forms have become more complex. And the process of chemical communication has been refined and manipulated by a variety of different species, all with the same purpose: survival. These California ground squirrels use chemical scents that they secrete to mark their territory. But by doing so, squirrels unwittingly communicate their whereabouts to their chief predator, the rattlesnake.
Rattlesnakes have an amazing sense of smell that they use to hunt their prey. As ground squirrels are moving through their environment or in their burrows, they're inadvertently communicating with the rattlesnake, leaving behind olfactory cues, which the rattlesnake can use to locate them.
Biologist Barbara Klukas has long studied the relationship between these two rivals. She knew that for rattlesnakes, the scent trail left behind by squirrels was like having GPS directions right to their burrows. So how could squirrels possibly survive and thrive when their main predator had turned their own communication system against them? Klukas wondered whether the answer lay with a curious behavior she had witnessed in the wild: squirrels chewing on shed rattlesnake skins.
There you go. So he's going to start chewing on it. It's kind of a sticky paste if you get it wet, the shed skin. And they'll sort of lick their flank a bit, and then they'll move to their tail.
To Klukas, this observation was a revelation. Squirrels were trying to cloak themselves in the scent of their enemy, a form of deceptive communication. But were the snakes falling for the trick?
We had an idea that the snake scent application served an anti-predator function, but we wanted to directly ask the predator to see if it was affected by adding rattlesnake to squirrel scent.
Using snake skins and squirrel fur she collected in the field, Klukas prepared two samples, one marked strictly with squirrel scent, and another with a combination of both snake and squirrel scents, mimicking the result of the squirrel's cloaking tactic.
In the wild, they're not completely covering all their odor, so it's going to be a mixture of ground squirrel odor and rattlesnake odor.
Klukas was then ready for her subject, one of the deadliest snakes in the world, the northern Pacific rattlesnake. Snakes pick up scents differently than mammals. They smell with their tongue, using its forked shape to direct air molecules toward a sensory organ on the roof of their mouths. For Klukas, the frequency and speed with which the snake flicked its tongue would let her know if it had locked onto the squirrel's scent.
What I would score is the amount of time the snake would have its head over the filter paper, and then also the number of tongue flicks that they did over the filter paper.
The squirrel-only scent clearly got the snake's attention.
See how his tongue flicks changes? Go faster. Yeah, he's definitely interested in that.
But the sample cloaked in rattlesnake scent tempered its aggression. A series of slower, longer tongue flicks. For Klukas, this meant only one thing. The snake scent was masking the squirrel scent. Prey had deceived predator using chemical communication. The snake was led to think it was pursuing not a squirrel, but another snake.
By testing the snakes directly, I could see that their hunting behavior was, in fact, affected by adding rattlesnake odor to ground squirrel odor, and therefore reduces the predation risk for the ground squirrels.
Billions of years after it was invented, ground squirrels have advanced chemical communication, using it to outwit their predators and ensure their own survival.
Communication is the basis of predator-prey interactions, and ground squirrels, by applying snake scent to their body, are manipulating this communication and gaining a major advantage over rattlesnakes.
Scent and chemical communication provides insects, mammals, and other animals with a fast, effective means of sending a message. But for some animals in the ocean, a different strategy for communicating turned out to be the most effective.